Now, I'm gonna do my best to be unbiased in this video. As everybody knows, if you're a longtime viewer, I am a huge saber-face simp. I mean, especially when it comes to the Lancer Artoria versions and the mysterious heroine, you know, Saber Wars type characters as well. I am an absolute massive fan. And MHXX is no exception. Not only do I like all three of her ascensions, I think they're all absolute bangers, she's just a really fun servant to use. I mean, being able to nuke the enemy for like 5 bajillion damage is just fun. I mean, it's one of the reasons that I really like using Draco. I'm like, okay, well, does Draco have some problems here and there? Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they take this 1 million damage at NP1. No Black Grail, no nothing required, just get absolutely obliterated. And MHXX is kind of the same way. The only thing is that she definitely is starting to show her age a little bit because her skills weren't exactly built to last the best. She's definitely, I don't want to say a glass cannon, but she's kind of like Li Shuwen, and I would be kind of hypocritical if I didn't call out MHXX for having some of the same issues that Li Shuwen does, because I rag on the 5-star Li Shuwen all the time for being a guy where like, okay, here's 1 turn of big damage, and now we twiddle our thumbs for 4 turns, and MHXX is kind of like that as well. But hey, you know what, I'm gonna give her a little bit of a pass because, you know, she has power mods, and her damage can get absolutely ludicrous, so I kind of think it's kind of more worth it with her, because the difference in doing, say, 56,000 damage and doing 151,000 damage, or 100,000 damage, 75,000 damage is a bit different, right? Having these insane power mods that will actually come up are very, very strong. So we're going to talk about her in today's video and whether or not, I guess, she's worth summoning for. Okay, I'm going to tell you for free, as much as I love this servant, unless you're a huge saber-face simp, you should probably just save for some of the other single target art servants that are coming out next year. Because, I mean, even if you are a saber-face simp, you have Castoria Berserker coming out next year, and you have Draco. You got 2 different flavors of saber-face that are coming out that are way better than this servant. But maybe it's the mecha suit that does it for you, right? Maybe you're like me, you like your Gundams, and you're like, you know what, let me get the Gundam lady. Whatever have you, we're going to break her down in today's video. But before we begin, if you enjoy the daily FGO content that I'll be putting out on this channel, yeah, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like on the video and maybe even subscribe to the channel, as it helps me out more than you know during some of these slower periods for FGO. As I absolutely love this game, it wouldn't be the main game that I cover on this channel if I didn't love everything about it, particularly the story and whatnot. So, hey, if there's not a whole lot going on, I'm gonna make there's something to, you know, go on and talk about. You know, I'll create the content myself. And if, hey, that's going over some servants that are making their return, talking about low rarity servants that are a bit better than you thought, or even trying to fix some servants that aren't particularly great, I will find a way to have something to talk about every single day. Now, with all that being said, let's get right into her kit, starting off with her hits. And, you know, surprisingly for a servant that came out in, what, year 3 with Summer BB and Summer Jean, she's got some pretty decent hits on her. I mean, nothing super insane, but hey, they could definitely be worse with some of the other servants that came up before her and also around her time. 3 hits on the double arts cards with 0.64% NP gain. I mean, that's kind of average. I mean, that's all right. You can get some pretty decent refund off of that, especially, again, on your crits. I mean, she's got a solid quick card that has 4 hits and 15% star gen, but she's not really a crit servant. I mean, don't let the 18% crit that she has through her passive skills deceive you. She's not really out here to be doing massive crits. She's out here to be smacking enemies with the force of God with that NP that she has. So just focus on doing that. Focus on hitting those arts cards. Unfortunately, she does fail the vibe check over here at ZTL Industries, because we do like to see that 5-hit extra attack being at the very minimum the gold standard, and she is just 1 point shy at 4 hits on that extra attack. Because if you didn't know, the extra attack is a composite card that Gen Stars NPN does big boy damage, and especially with the advent of a pen skills, it is as omnipotent as ever. And while I would like to say that her skills kind of make up for it not being the 5-hit extra attack, well, let's just start diving into her skills and you'll see what I mean. Starting off with her first skill, she gives herself invincibility for 1 turn and then gives herself a 50% attack buff for 1 turn on a 5-turn cooldown, and that is it. Both of these effects are rather powerful in and of themselves, but them being the only things that she's doing, especially when they're both only for 1 turn, on a 5-turn cooldown, you really are twiddling your thumbs for the next 4 turns, waiting for this to come up. That might be why, you know, you could break out the Tamamo, maybe kind of lower that cooldown a little bit on those skills. I'm saying that kind of ironically and also kind of non-ironically. You know, someone like Tamamo can pair very nicely with XX over here and helping her get those skills back so she can, you know, spend less time sitting around doing nothing and more time bonking the enemy. The other unfortunate thing is that this is your survivability and your main damage steroid tied into one skill, which is really, really annoying. Thankfully, she is an art servant, so if you do burn this invincibility, it's not that big of a deal because Castoria, Lady Avalon, and even someone like Waver can technically have you covered with the defensive, the damage cut, and the ability to drain enemy NPs. You know, he can kind of cover you. Arts is in a very good position for those type of effects, but it is really annoying if you want to do something like, say, a solo. You might not be able to do huge mondo damage because you gotta save the invul for when the enemy's gonna, you know, shoot you with an NP, or maybe it's one of those stages where you're not able to bring a friend support and you just don't have your own Lady Avalon or Castoria, in which case, yeah, you might have to save this for the invincibility, or you might have to burn the invincibility because you think, okay, I really got to make a big push on the enemy to do a lot of damage. I think realistically, if they wanted to help this out a little bit, they could just make the attack 3 times for 3 turns, or let's just keep it frank, just make it a 3-turn 50% attack buff. Why not? Just let her do mondo damage over here. Or maybe attach like an arts buff or something to it. That could also kind of be nice. But moving over to her second skill, even though she's really not a crit servant at all whatsoever, she does bomb 20 crit stars over here for herself, and then she also reduces her own star weight by 100% for 1 turn, which is a little bit annoying, but hey, this is on a 4-turn cooldown, so I guess the idea is that you just keep bombing stars every couple of turns. I mean, that's kind of nice to always have stars in rotation. I almost view this as what they wanted to do with someone like, say, Estrella, but MHXX is kind of the prototype for this, because Estrella is, you know, an art servant that pretty much produces all of her own stars for herself. Very solid arts crit servant. Kind of seems like they wanted to do that for MHXX as well, like maybe they had similar ideas, you know, in the kitchen, but this one didn't exactly cook through all the way because, for one, where's the crit payoff? And 2, why is she lowering her own absorption? If you want her to be doing the crits, why are you making it harder for her to do her own crits? That just seems a little bit weird. But then, hey, maybe the cook is that, you know, you give the stars to your supports, they crit, they can get to their NPs easier, you know, crit on Castoria's arts card. I mean, if they were thinking that far ahead in the future when they released this servant, then, you know, bravo Lisangle, or I guess technically DW at the time, but I think it's just supposed to be a funny skill that they plopped on there. I would appreciate if they just throw like a 30% crit damage buff for the turn as well on this skill. I think that'd make it pretty fine. You could kind of turn her into a pseudo crit DPS, not the most insane, but if she had her own like 30% plus or passive 18% plus the 100% that she can get from Lady Avalon, that would actually make her kind of sick nasty with it if she was going to be doing some crits. Finally, there's her third skill, which admittedly is pretty solid. It gives her Pierce invincibility for a turn, a 30% battery, and a 50% power mod against threat against humanity enemies for 1 turn on a 5-turn cooldown. This does give her a little bit of value if you want to use her in 90++ content. Not so much the threat against humanity enemies, because I don't really see you running into those in any 90++ contents very frequently, but because if we look at her NP, she also has a 200% power mod against Saber class servant enemies. If you want to bring her into a 90++ and you just needed to chunk 1 large enemy, she can kind of get that done for you, especially because she's also giving herself a 20% attack buff that procs first. So in total, she'll have 70% attack plus a huge dumpy power mod on her as well. She can kind of just eviscerate people doing mondo damage on them. Although even though she could do an insane amount of damage, I don't think, especially without someone like Oberon, you're going to be clearing 90++ enemies at NP1, especially because given you are going to be going in neutral. But if you are lucky enough to get some higher NP copies, it is possible for you to start clearing some of these guys, especially if you want to start factoring stuff like face cards and whatnot, because then that's also where, you know, bombing the 20 stars might also come into play, because then you can maybe kind of finagle a situation where your crits are pretty much guaranteed. It's not exactly the best setup. I mean, we literally do have better servants. I mean, like Castoria Berserker kind of just does it better. I mean, imagine being a Berserker is super effective on everybody with the power mods and the massive batteries, or Kenshin, who's kind of like the same thing, but even larger battery and, you know, more sufficient kit. You know, they might do it a little bit better, but hey, you know what? XX over here does at least have a spot in there. And, you know, we got to at least acknowledge that she is the 6th hardest hitting single target art servant in the game, but you will notice above her is the aforementioned Kenshin, and Kenshin has a really dummy good kit. There's also Eris who's up there, and if you were to ask my opinion, Eris does kind of just seem like the more modern version of what XX is supposed to be. They sacrificed a little bit of the really insane damage, like not being able to get up to like 100,000 damage when fighting sabers, but they kind of sacked that to just make her a bit more consistent and just give her a better power mod overall against servants. But look, if you're going to be summoning on one of these banners, you know, say you are going to be going in on the Yang banner, this is not a bad consolation prize. Say you go in for Yang, you go like 600 Saint Quartz deep, you don't get any copies of Yang, but you get an NP5XX. Well, congratulations, you just unlocked the Czar bomb buff for your account, because if there is any, you know, main story boss, because most of those guys are threat against humanities, or there's a Saber that you can smell within a 50 billion mile radius, she's gonna fly all the way from the Andromeda Galaxy over here to make sure that dude never walks again. Spoilers for my JJK readers, but she's gonna do to the Saber class enemies what my boy Yuji did to Sukuna. If you know, you know. That being said, is she like really the greatest servant of all time? You know, is she like all that insane, you know, a must summon? Not really, but she is very fun to use. So if you do go on the Yang banner, treat her like a consolation prize. She also will come back later on this year on a Gilgamesh New Year's banner, which I was really hyped for when that came out over on the JP side of things, because I was like, dude, not only did they buff the 4-star rate so I can like finally finish my XX, but I can also get Gilgamesh, and I ended up really not getting either one of those goals met. So hopefully if you're waiting for that banner instead of this upcoming one, you have a little bit better luck than I do. But yeah, with that being said, very, very solid servant, not a must summon, but very fun to use. I'll give her that. If you enjoyed the video, again, I would appreciate a like on the video and a subscription to the channel if you found it entertaining or you just like being informed on what's going on both versions of the game. But if you want to go that extra mile, we do have a Patreon down in the description down below where I will be working on doing some lore videos because I'm not really sure if I can post those over here on the channel over here because of like the whole like Sony things. If I talk about Ordeal Call 3, I don't know if I'm going to get obliterated. So I'm working on some of those, especially because some of them seem like they're going to be like a 2-year wait to drop or something along those lines. Like, that's kind of crazy. There's also going to be stuff like game nights and movie nights that I do with some of my patrons as well while we're kind of waiting for some of those videos to get out. So if you would like to go that extra mile, those are some of the rewards you can look forward to. But again, even just watching the video, leaving a like, and hitting that fat subscription button is more than enough. It's just there for people that feel like going that extra mile. With all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.